Welcome to The Sideshow.
Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of The Sideshow. Today, Mike is going to be leading the charge. So, Mike, why don't you let the audience know what we're going to be talking about today?
Thanks, Mark. Today we're going to be talking about a side from an album that back in the day was a big deal, not necessarily in terms of mass popularity in the United States, but was a big, very well regarded by critics, very well regarded by musicians, and it is the first album from an English band called Gang of Four. And the name of the album was Entertainment. It was a debut album, and it came out in 1979. Mm-hmm. And they were a punk band, but the album was basically it became one of the initial entries into what became known as post-punk. And we've talked about that in the past. You know, we've done podcasts like on The Clash and on, for example, Joy Division's first album. They were a punk band, but just the way they played was what really was what came to be known as post-punk. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, these guys had a political ferocity that would give the Clash a run for their money.
Yeah.
If anything, they were a lot more doctrinaire and ideological than the Clash were. But we're going to be talking about side 2 from Gang of Four's Entertainment album, and there's not a whole bunch, in my opinion, to really talk about the formation of Gang of Four. They were formed in Leeds, England. These were people who went to school at Leeds University in England. They were formed in 1976. And like a number of other bands that formed in the northern regions of England in the late 70s, that was the year that the Sex Pistols were touring England. Mm-hmm. And a number of, they were, if, take a wild guess, there were 4 members of the band. Mm-hmm. And they were all students from Leeds University. And there were a number of bands that formed in some of the northern cities in England in 1976, in addition to this band in Leeds. Another band that was also made up of Leeds University students was called the Mekons, Mekons, the Mekons. And they were a little more of a rough and tumble outfit than Gang of Four was, and they never reached the sort of notoriety that Gang of Four did, but it was the same group of students that basically produced both these bands. Joy Division, which you mentioned before, was formed in Manchester, England in 1976. And another band that ended up going in a much different direction than Gang of Four that formed in Sheffield. And Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester are all kind of up there in that industrial
north,
north of England, and that was the Human League, who ultimately went on to be kind of a synth pop band.
Yeah,
it was like "Don't You Want Me" and "Fascination," a much more sort of commercially viable band. But all these bands kind of arose following the Sex Pistols touring England in 1976 and went on to various things. And Joy Division and Gang of Four are the cream of the crop, in my opinion. And it's hard now, in 2026 to look back when punk rock was still kind of a current thing that was happening in the late 70s. We were going to high school at that time, and there wasn't, you didn't go to keg parties and hear Gang of Four
put
on, that didn't happen. A good friend of ours, who I'm sure you recall, was dabbling in these kind of things
Yeah.
and introduced probably both of us to a lot of these kind of bands. And over time, I came to really appreciate the work of Gang of Four. After forming in 1976, they played around. As I said, there are four members of the band. Um, the vocalist was named John King. The guitarist was Andy Gill. The bass player was Dave Allen, and Hugo Burnham was the drummer. And so they're basically like a power trio with a lead singer,
Yeah.
like Led Zeppelin,
Hmm.
in terms of the structure of the band. Although they played a much more pared down, politically conscious, aggressive. Well, they played punk rock,
Yeah.
but there was more of a precision and sort of I don't know what the right way to phrase it would be, but just a more contemplated, intentional form of aggression in their
Hmm.
music, uh, even compared to the Sex Pistols or the Clash.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys meant business, both musically and in terms of the ideology and the politics of their lyrics, and they were in your face for
So first of all, just kind of stepping back to the beginning. I mean, this to me is one of the reasons we do this show, is bands and albums like this. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, nowadays when we're kind of looking back at our record collections and talking with friends about the stuff that we used to listen to, whether it be at a beer party or driving in our cars, whatever. I mean, the Gang of Four just doesn't come up that much. And but taking the time to stop and look back at this band and this particular album, I mean, this is a very highly acclaimed album. If you look at like current lists of like Rolling Stones lists of top 500 albums of all time, and 1001 albums that you must hear before you die. I mean, this album makes all of them, right?
yeah.
That are in there. It is on more exclusive lists of like greatest debut albums of bands, because this was their debut album, and it really hit home, as far as people that were like, these guys are really dug into this niche. And I mean, I would agree with you. It's not just punk. There's kind of a wit, but there's anger, and there's just a lot of raw energy in the music, of this side. And as when we actually start to get into some tracks, we'll talk more specifically about it. But I think some very creative and interesting ways of doing things above and beyond just a bunch of mad guys with guitars that said, if the Sex Pistols could do it, anybody can do it, right?
Uh,
Let's get a band together. So I think this is a great selection, Mike, to talk through, and it really kind of like I've enjoyed kind of coming back to this music and listening to it, and thinking a little bit more about it. And they had something here, without a doubt. And I would argue they probably haven't gotten the continuing acclaim for the work, because I'll tell you, the topics that they talk about in these songs are still absolutely relevant. You could take and you could put this stuff out there now. In fact, more so with the way the media is, with the way the way that war and violence and sex and love are portrayed in on our news and that type of thing. They get into these topics in these songs, and like I say, if anything, it's more relevant today than it was in the late '70s. So this has been fun, kind of gearing up for this.
well, and musically, I'm as far as I'm concerned, it really is punk music,
Mm-hmm.
but I use the word precision earlier. I mean, they are a tight band, and some of the rhythmic structure of the songs, it's funk
Yeah.
to some extent, and the interplay between the drummer and the bass player, it's almost like something that you'd hear in like a jazz
Mm-hmm.
rock fusion band. Who, those kind of bands were known for tight precision in their
Yeah.
playing. But the way that the singer and the guitar player interact with that creates something different.
Yeah.
There are times where the drummer, it sounds like almost like something that like Bill Bruford
Mm-hmm.
or Neil Peart might play.
Yeah.
And the bass player is very precise, but at the same time has this in your face aggression to his style of playing. When I mentioned funk, Flea, the
Mm-hmm.
bass player for the Red Hot Chili
Yeah.
Peppers, identifies Gang of Four and this album as a major influence on him musically, period, let alone his style of playing bass.
Yeah, and
Um,
you can absolutely draw a line from the Gang of Four music to a number of songs from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I also find at the same time that this kind of almost jagged energy and funk is in there. There's a bounciness that kind of brings like a reggae style to some of the music in different places. So they've really kind of brought a lot together to create and I'd agree with you. This is punk. I mean, we're not going to spin this around, but they bring these other aspects, and I think a precision to it that sets it apart from a lot of the other type of proliferation of punk that you're hearing, during this time period.
yeah, and to kind of fill out the rest of the band in terms of how they came across. The guitarist. There's times where he sounds like Pete Townsend. There's times where he sounds kind of like The Edge,
Mm-hmm.
with U2. There's times where he sounds like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
A
you
lot of
know,
feedback. A lot of feedback in this
and
in this album.
and the singer, he just happened to fit very neatly into that late '70s English punk in a way that was unique and it was his own, but it fit very neatly into that. So
Yeah.
they combined a number of elements, and I never found this music boring
Mm-hmm.
ever. I mean, and in preparing for the podcast and kind of refreshing my memory and stuff, it has it still feels fresh and has energy and some vitality to it. It's great stuff as far as I'm concerned. And anyone who has any interest at all in whether you want to call it punk or post punk or new wave, uh, especially coming out of England, has any interest in that stuff at all, this is just an absolutely essential component of
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, in any event, the album, I got a copy of the vinyl, the same one I got back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a pretty simple cover, Gang of Four Entertainment. There's some three images uh, that show a white man interacting with an Indian,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some commentary around it, which basically accuses the white man of befriending the Indian for exploitation
Yeah.
purposes, which is kind of a big thing with these guys in general. The back cover has a number of images and the list of the songs and whatnot. And uh, uh, I don't want to get too into it, but there's commentary about the imagery on the back of the album. And look how happy they are. I spend most of our money on myself so I can stay fat, but we're grateful for his leftovers. I mean, these guys were down on capitalism and popular culture in a pretty big way. There's no gatefold to the album, but the dust sleeve, it has a number of images that are taken on one side of various images that were taken off of a TV screen, and then and then commentary along the lines of what I was referring to. And then on the other side, they have the song lyrics and the members of the band and whatnot. Very straightforward album cover, and kind of it's got quintessence, and did a really good job of kind of summing up where they were coming from. As I mentioned, they were, these guys, they were down on capitalism and popular culture, and they were apparently also interested in what was it was a political thing that was going on during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it was situationist. The Situationist International was sort of a political movement. One of those kind of things, kind of like postmodernism that came up, started to come up at least in the 1950s when, kind of traditional Marxists, like in between the wars, you had guys like Jack Reed from the United States who got involved in the Soviet Union, and Marxism was kind of a thing. But after Stalin, that was kind of, to put it charitably, that was some bad PR for those who lean towards Marxist philosophy. And so something a little more palatable in postmodernism is what really kind of rose up. But the Situationist International really looked at the whole situation in terms of imagery, media, art, things of that nature, and how all that affected, the culture, and how it was designed. It affected the culture by design. Those in power, almost kind of like a Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. It's like, no, this isn't 1984. It's not where they're depriving you things and trying to control you. No, they're giving you all you want and more in a way that's designed to steer your desires towards what they're selling. Kind of the Soma sort of thing. And that's where these guys were coming from. And they meant business. And whether you agree with that philosophy or these things or not, it's powerful, in my opinion, and really worth checking out. But in any case, before side 2 is what we're going to talk about, which in my opinion is the more powerful side. But before we delve into the tracks themselves, any final word on the Gang of Four in general, Mark?
Yeah, I think that the if you take a close look at some of the, like you said, the ideas they were pushing, I mean, they're very specific in some cases, right? About not just Marxist ideas, but very specific channels of theory. I mean, these guys were well read, right, in trying to take up these some of these different causes. And I mean, there was a bunch of them that they get into. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, for anybody in especially in England, if you're going to tackle these larger political themes and then take a couple pot shots at what was going on with the Troubles in Ireland and this kind of thing, I mean, plenty of material for them to get their arms around and be angry with. And they seem to accomplish that here. So yeah, let's dig into the side. Let's get into these songs.
All right. Well, the first track on side 2 is called "I Found That Essence Rare," and maybe just why don't we play a clip of the first minute or two of that song, and then we can start our discussion on the other side.
Sounds good.
so you kind of heard that start with the sort of out of step count off of the 1, 2, 3, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. And then this sort of jagged guitar line is coming in
Yep.
before, the whole band just bounces into this straightforward punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that essence rare. I think the essence meaning, what is the basis? What is the truth of what's really going on in life, in situations, whatever? And that very first verse, it seems kind of simplistic, but I think there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Aim for the body rare. You'll see it on TV. Kind of perfection of imagery that is presented, that people should aspire to.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing in 1954 was the bikini. See the girl on TV dressed in a bikini. She doesn't think so, but she's dressed for the H-bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not something that's particularly controversial, but what they're referring to is the atomic testing that was conducted by the United States on the Bikini Atoll,
Yeah.
basically, which is an island in the Marshall Islands in the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's in the Pacific.
Yeah.
In any case, and the United States was conducting nuclear testing at that location, Bikini, starting in 1946, right after the Second World War. But it was in 1954 that the United States first tested a hydrogen bomb,
Yeah.
the H bomb, and which was and the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki did not they didn't use hydrogen. They were different.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a different sort of device, and
Yeah.
the H bomb was supposedly 1,000 times more powerful than the weapons that were used against Japan at the end of the Second World War. So at the time, it was kind of a big deal, and
Mm-hmm.
the actual, I believe, is a French person that sort of initially marketed the two-piece bathing suit, started doing it in 1946. And I don't know to what extent this is true or is an urban legend or whatever, but apparently the inventor or at least the initial marketer of the bikini in 1946 chose that name because he thought that this new product was going to go over and explode on the scene, not unlike atomic weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd say hindsight shows he was pretty right. It had a bit of an fashion explosion.
You can get on the internet and find images of Marilyn Monroe in a swimsuit in the 1940s, and you are going to see her in bikinis.
A bikini, yep.
And so it really did, but it's kind of the talking about popular culture and where innovation was taking the world.
Yeah.
At that time, and there was a lot of nuclear anxiety in the 50s, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got the Cuban Missile Crisis in the very early 1960s, and the TV was always going in the background, and you were able to have all the newest fashions and the newest products and the newest this and the newest that made available to you on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the aspects of popular culture, I think, that was a big target for the ire of the band was the commodification of things.
Mm-hmm.
And here they're just they're talking in the first verse of the song. They're talking about swimsuits, bikinis, women in bikinis on TV in the 50s and stuff like that. And, people would see the bare midriff. And back in those days, not a lot of belly buttons were visible.
Mm-hmm.
They were, they weren't the current crop of bikinis today, I mean, the only thing they cover is what they absolutely have
Mm-hmm.
to, some of them, whereas here it was a lot different. And
Yeah.
that bare midriff above the navel was enough to get
Yeah.
everybody's, blood flowing, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But then, the brief chorus, I found that essence rare. It's what I looked for. I knew I'd get what I asked for. Um, uh, and the other verses are not quite so straightforward, but they the last verse, which wasn't heard in the clip that we heard, it gets at politics, and it says,
Mm-hmm.
aim for politicians fair who'll treat your vote hope well. The last thing they'll ever do is act in your interest. Look at the world through your Polaroid glasses. Things will look a whole lot better for the working classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so and the chorus is repeated. It's a very simple, straightforward song, but has a lot of energy, a lot of oomph.
Yeah.
And back in the old days, it would have been hard to hear this at a club or at a party or whatever, because in college you didn't hear it at the beer parties in high school,
Yeah.
but in college I would hear it
Yeah.
occasionally, and it was the sort of thing that you could dance to, and it had a lot of substance. But if you didn't feel like delving into the lyrics, and just sort of letting the beat of the music and the rhythm of the music kind of take hold of you and get into it, it worked on that level too.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and really everything in between. Uh, uh, and I'm not saying it's the best song on the side or the album, but it's a great opener.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's got a lot of that energy that we've been talking about. Is that this band does really well. I'd agree with you. Commodification of everything is a target of what they're talking about here. I also think that they talk about the TV and the paper and politicians. I think there's also a swipe at the media in here about how everything seems to be sugar-coated the way that the audience is going to want to see it, that the politicians are going to want to vote for you, that the county fair is this wonderful, lovely place, and that type of thing, which clearly the Gang of Four feels may not be the case. So really a great kickoff to the side.
Well, and the kind of I guess the final word on the, because you mentioned the media, television, the newspapers, politics, and commodification. Sort of and I think this might have been it was either in the late 50s or the early 60s when Ronald Reagan was the spokesperson for General Electric, GE Theater on television, and Ronald and Nancy Reagan were sort of the face of that company for purposes of their advertising to a certain extent. And, the new products that General Electric was creating, whether it be refrigerator freezers, radar ranges, microwave ovens, your
Yeah.
new dishwasher, your stove,
Yeah.
for June Cleaver to cook better meals and this and that. And on the one hand, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is not something to criticize Ronald Reagan about, for example.
Yeah.
But it also sort of exemplifies, I think, what Gang of Four was trying to get at is that, what you see on television and how the world is presented on television, and how if you live like this, you'll be happy. And if you want to live like this, you should buy these things. And therefore, you'll be able to live like this. And then you'll be happy. And I think that the members of the band didn't buy that sell.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
and
we, we
and
we
I
may
think
hear
most
that
people would agree that
concept.
that the world isn't that simple.
We may find that that concept is brought up again in some of the songs later on in the side as well.
All right. Well, let's move along. And the second track is called Glass, and it's there's not as much substance in this song, but let's listen to the first minute or two so that the listeners can get a taste of the song, and then we'll start our discussion on the other side.
Sounds good, Mike.
Look through the window. Look through the window. Look through the window. I'm looking through a pane of glass. Look through the window and what do you see? Look through the window and what do you see? Look through the window and what do you see? I'm looking through a pane of glass. I'm so restless. I'm so restless. I'm so restless. We talk about this and we talk about that. I'm so restless, I'm bored as a cat. I'm so restless, I'm bored as a cat. I'm so restless, I'm bored as a cat. We talk about this and we talk about that. Like myself. Like myself. Like myself. Nicotine really goes to my head. Light myself up a cigarette. Light myself up a cigarette. Light myself up a cigarette. Nicotine really goes to my head.
All right. This song, in my opinion, is much more simple, much more straightforward conceptually than the first track, and it's basically it's someone who's sitting inside looking out the window, and that's it. And doesn't really know what to do with themselves, or doesn't feel that they have anything worthwhile that they can do. And it's not the gist of the song lyrically is not unlike the Clash song London's Burning. London's burning with boredom now
Yeah.
because everyone's sitting around watching television.
Mm-hmm.
Or we talked about kind of a similar concept in the Joy Division track Shadow Play,
Yeah.
where the singer was living his life in this apartment, and it was only by looking outside that he could realize there was a whole world going on. And so in some ways this is the simplest, most straightforward song on the side, and sums up something that was on the mind of other musicians who were producing music around the same time, but does so with that sort of funky precision, not quite as much as the previous song or some of the songs that we have yet to hear or to talk about on the side, but and even gets into and this lyric isn't in the clip, but the you're back on a backrest if you feel in a real mess. When you're feeling all in, take some aspirin or some paracetamol. Now,
Pretty
uh,
specific guidance there.
and I did a quick search on the internet. What the fuck is paracetamol? And it sounds like it was just a conventional over-the-counter pain reliever.
Mm-hmm.
Not unlike acetaminophen or ibuprofen, or
Yeah.
aspirin, for that matter. And now I don't know if that was like a name brand product that was sold in England, and where and maybe on TV commercials, like when we were growing up, we'd see TV commercials for Excedrin,
Yeah.
Bayer aspirin, and this and that. And Excedrin was supposed to be the best thing you could take for headaches.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that paracetamol had some kind of I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's there's not as much to discuss lyrically about this song, and it does kind of keep that upbeat. You can enjoy the music for the music's sake, at least in my opinion.
Well, and I hear this song, and you can, this idea that you're sitting and you're not participating in life, you're not a part of life, you're watching it through a window. Now, that's kind of the setup, and it's very clear that the singer is not overly happy about that. They're restless about it. They light up a cigarette. I mean, and kind of sooner or later, the frustration of not being a part of life, I'm assuming for most people, if this was their thing, would get them to get up and go outside or go to a bar or go do something, right? It's kind of interesting. You fast forward to now, I believe a lot of people feel the same thing, right? All these things are happening and they're not a part of it. Unfortunately, people have now been provided a device that they can hold up to their face. So now they're not even looking at life. They're looking at this thing that has been completely processed for them. Again, I just think an example of this, a lot of the themes that they were addressing are even more relevant today. It's just, I'm looking through glass at life, and I'm really not a part of it. It's relevant for people to think about today, and people should be restless about that if they don't feel a part of their life. Well, Gang of Four was angry about it, and they let their music the say. So again, pretty straightforward song, but just a good one as well. They haven't slowed down at all here.
And I hadn't necessarily thought about it that way, but what you said is I think spot on, because if you take the lyric in this song, I'm looking through a pane of glass.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a smartphone screen.
Yeah.
and I'm so restless. I read about this and I read about that. Yeah. I'm so restless. I'm bored as a cat. Light myself up a cigarette.
Yeah.
Nicotine really goes to my head. It's like, that's it. Okay, I got my cell phone.
Picture somebody scrolling through their stuff. They're getting angry by what they're reading and seeing. They light up a cigarette. Take some aspirin because it's giving them a headache. I mean, this is fast forward 40 years and they're spot on.
Well, and if anything, it shows the fact that the kind of the Brave New World aspect of things. And when I say that, I don't mean the test tube babies. I mean the soma. That if anything, it's worse now. It's the problem that he was trying to describe, given the advance of technology and whatnot, has only gotten worse.
Yeah.
And prescient observation is one of the things that the best art can provide.
Yeah.
About what's happening in the world, and sometimes, or more importantly, where is the world going?
Yeah.
And if we can see ahead of the game and potentially head it off, shouldn't that be a good thing? But didn't happen in terms of what he was talking about here.
Yeah.
So while more straightforward than and simple than most of the other material on this album, or certainly on this side, Glass continues more or less with the same basic theme.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep on trucking, and track number 3, we're gonna get into some more complex, darker territory with this song.
We're not going to lighten things up here.
No. We're right back in the thick of it. And this may be one of the more troubling tracks on the whole side, but it's called Contract. And before we start the discussion, let's listen to a little of it, and then we'll pick it up on the other side.
Sounds good.
The same again. Another disagreement. You dream of scenes like you read of in magazines. A new romance invented in the bedroom. Is this so private? I struggle in the bedroom. Is this really the way it is? Or a contract in our mutual interest? The same again. Another disappointment. We couldn't perform in the way the other wanted. These social dreams put in practice in the bedroom. Is this so private? I struggle in the bedroom. Is this really the way it is? Or a contract in our mutual interest?
Okay. Now, this is a very jaundiced take on love and marriage. And it's really, it brings up some things that are difficult for most people to talk about. Even and it's difficult for the married couple in this song to talk about. And again, it's about the commodification of love and marriage, and how the way that love and sexual encounters are depicted, whether it's in the movies or on television or whatnot, it creates these expectations and ideas as to what love and sexual intimacy between people is supposed to be, and if people aren't able to live up to that, it becomes a problem. And you go back to the first track. I found that Essence Rare talking about bikinis. I mean, and you watch movies and this and that, and you see these guys, they're rafishly handsome with pecs, and these women, they've got large breasts and round bottoms, and they look great in a bikini, and they have these just sort of perfectly orchestrated sexual encounters where everything that's supposed to happen happens right when they want it to. And in the real world, it's never that neat and clean. The sort of standard courtship that's depicted in film, or the very quick coupling of two people who just happen to encounter each other, into a sexual relationship, whatever it might be. You dreamed of scenes like you read in magazines.
Yeah.
And when it switches out of the verse into the refrain, I mean, those guitars just have a nasty, aggressive, very dissonant quality to it. Is this really the way it is? It's sort of like waking up to a nightmare. And and then or a contract in our mutual interest, which is just the most antiseptic,
Yep.
purely legalistic way to look at marriage, as an institution between people. Um,
Yeah.
pretty harsh stuff.
Yeah, and I think that, well, first of all, I think that it clearly centers this problem on the media, right? This the genesis of the problem on the media, that these scenes like you've read in magazines, and this is you brought up the notion of appearance, which is, I mean, everywhere, whether it be advertisements or movies or whatever. To your point, it's like, and I think that people have found a way to get over those expectations, mainly because they spend their time looking in the mirror, and they know they're not so. But this gets into even other things, sex, right? And which is hard for anybody to talk about. It's harder for married couples that are experiencing troubles here to talk about. And then I just think even more the basic day-to-day of solving problems and dealing with arguments and maybe financial struggles. There's all these things that aren't that those are the harder things to get through, that truly make people miserable. Like, is this what it's all about? Right? Is because I think that most couples, especially when they found a partner that they that they truly feel they can connect with, I truly believe that people set all of the physical expectations aside that we got when we were kids and young adults watching movies and that type of thing. But this other stuff, the really hard stuff of relationships, this is where I think people find themselves mad that they didn't get the type of relationship that they wanted. But nobody does, because these expectations are set, and it's an angry thing that it's left with. So I mean, I agree with you. This probes into like deep corners of things that make people miserable in their lives, and that they don't seem to be able to talk about. But I do like to go back to the beginning, that they place that, and I think accurately, that blame squarely on the media, that you're sugarcoating this stuff that shouldn't be sugarcoated, because it's difficult, hard stuff. And whether it's a relationship or a business partnership, or more importantly a marriage, there's some hard work in front of you to keep this working. Otherwise, you are just going to end up with a contract of mutual interest, right? Which isn't that romantic when you think about it.
Well, and the a lot of the lyrics are centered around the sexual, the body consciousness,
Yeah.
and the sexual aspect of a marital relationship. But I think the tone of that chorus, when it switches into that sort of nasty guitar part, and is this really the way it is? It really does get to the fact that any lasting companionship, an intimate, a marital type relationship, even if there's not even if the parties to the relationship aren't actually married, if it's that type of relationship, if a lasting companionship is going to endure, it requires compromise and sacrifice on the part of both parties. Now, and if you're able to do that in a workable way, the benefits that come from a functional partnership between two intimate partners, if you can get the settings right in terms of that compromise and sacrifice, there's going to be the payoff is there. But going into it without appreciating the necessity of those things, it just create problems. Yeah. And in terms of the media, I mean, think back to when Seinfeld and Friends were big on TV, and I used to say back then that this people that grow up watching this, it's going to give them a jaundiced take on. Or not give that, but it's going to give them unreasonable expectations about what real life is going to be. Yeah. First of all, you know, the cast members in these shows, and I'm not knocking either of those shows.
No,
They were
yeah,
well
funny
written,
shows and
well written, funny shows,
Yeah.
worthy of their popularity. But you know, the people are never working, and they're always getting laid. You know, and they've got these nice, hip apartments with and things, you know, where it's you know,
They
where I
got
come,
stuff, and you know
they got stuff. Where I come from, that shit costs money.
Yeah,
You know, and the and just the complexity of the relationships is not it isn't really, it doesn't really come out. I mean, the nuance of interaction between people comes out fairly well.
yeah,
And that's one of the things that that made those shows successful and funny. But and everybody looks good,
yeah,
you know. And you know, and people like, you know, like George Costanza, he wasn't a dreamboat. And some of the characters on Friends, you know, Ross and Chandler, you know, those weren't leading man type guys, and so that's fine. But they look good. They were photogenic. They look good on screen, and you know, just the ideal of appearance that has become apparently so important. I mean, in the last couple of years, I've been seeing things on the internet about Shania Twain, and she's been doing some recording more recently after a hiatus for however long, and it's like she's appearing relatively unclothed in some of the art on her albums and stuff like that. And then, you know, you read a blurb from part of an article, and she's talking about how it's taken her till she's this age in life, and I don't know, she's got to be in her 50s or whatnot. But and she's talking about how she was so self-conscious, and she just had a negative image of her appearance and whatnot, and she's happy now to have gotten past that. And it's like, okay, if that's true, well, that's wonderful for her, and and if she's doing better and she's happier, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But on the other side of the coin, give me a fucking break. You know, 25 years ago, you know, she did the halftime show for the Super Bowl. She was regarded internationally as one of the most beautiful, sexy women on the planet. You know, I mean, and I guess you could look at that two ways. One of which is, maybe this just shows how real these problems are and the expectations that society has created. If a woman like Shania Twain, back when she was in her heyday, was self-conscious about her appearance, like, good Lord. And I guess the only other, there really is no other side of the coin. It's just that is maybe an illustration of just how unrealistic expectations are. If Shania Twain, back when she was in her heyday, thought that she just wasn't cutting it, where the fuck does that leave the rest of us?
Yeah, exactly. And the point that you know, maybe Gang of Four should have been the Super Bowl performer instead of Shania Twain. They had a little bit more confidence in their point of view.
They're commies.
Yeah.
Can't have commies doing the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I mean, so it's, I mean, heavy shit. This stuff, and it's almost like if you want to enjoy this music, it's almost like you have to disregard the lyrics. Now, and so that's not the best pitch to sell listening to this album, but you know, there's more to art than just entertainment. And you know, that's kind of a left-handed way of saying that I think the band titled the record ironically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, let's. I mean, there's still gloom and doom. We haven't even gotten to the worst of it.
Yeah.
But the next track is a little a little, not quite as
We
as
can, yeah,
as
we can't
grim.
relax, but the rubber band isn't wound quite so tight on our
Okay.
next one.
The fourth, there's 6 tracks altogether on the side, and we've talked about the first 3, and the fourth track is called "At Home." He's a tourist, and there's a couple of clips of this that I'd like to play, and let's play the first one to kind of set the stage for a discussion, and we'll pick it up after.
At home he feels like a tourist. At home he feels like a tourist. He fills his head with culture. He gives himself an ulcer. He fills his head with culture. He gives himself an ulcer. Down on the disco floor, they make their profits from the things they sell to help you come up, and the rubbers you hide in your top left pocket.
Okay. At home, he feels like a tourist. He fills his head with culture. He gives himself an ulcer. And the the specifics of what that what those lyrics are supposed to get at. It kind of could touch on a number of things. I kind of like the fact that it's there's enough ambiguity there to not not it's not like pounding a nail in your forehead. It gives you a little leeway to kind of think of how the music makes you feel in combination with the lyrics. But at home he feels like a tourist. Gets back to that, sitting in your Barca lounger, looking at stuff on your phone or your iPad instead of actually going out and doing things. And it drives you nuts. It gives you an ulcer. Or it could mean something else. I don't know. But when you get to the chorus, down on the disco floor, they make their profit from the things they sell to help you cob off all the rubbers you hide in your top left pocket. So, that's a little more straightforward. And the lyrics, I mean, and what's written on the lyrics on the album itself to help you cob off, COBOFF. Now, I don't, I assume that was some English slang that was at least current as of that time. Maybe it was, I don't know. I don't think it means jack off. I think it means get off.
Yeah.
Is how I interpret that. And basically they're drawing you, the commercial aspect of life is drawing you out to try to get laid, and they'll sell you as much alcohol as you want if that's going to help. And you pay the cover charge to go in and dance and try and, spark up something with someone that you meet. It's right back into that commodification of life, is how I see it. And before you weigh in, I also think it's worth mentioning that sort of building building intensity of the song at the beginning with that guitar. I mean, just these shards of guitar notes. Sounds kind of almost like something that the Edge in U2 would have done. Kind of like around the war, Sunday Bloody Sunday type stuff. And this was a single. This song was
Yes.
released as a single.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I agree with all you said and talked about the song. To this point, I also agree that you're starting to hear some of these, kind of similarities to, some of these other musical styles, as opposed to just like straightforward, just punk, raw kind of punk music coming at you. I as we hear in a lot of their songs, this whole notion of commerce, commoditization, these types of things. It's like you got to buy, man. You got to buy, and everybody buys when they're on vacation, right? But what we need is people to spend like they're on vacation when they're at home, right? We need you to be a tourist when you're at home. Buy this, buy that, right? We've got these places that if you want to find people, the disco, we could come spend your money. We can do things for you here. There, everything is kind of constantly coming at people, telling them to buy, right? And with everything around them, and that, and they're not happy about that. The Gang of Four, they're not happy that that's the case. So I'd agree. You're starting to hear some stuff musically in the song, and it continues on with the type of message that they're trying to get out with the other tracks on the album as well.
Yeah. And the second verse, instead of the at home he's a tourist, he fills his head with culture. The second the lyrics to the second verse are kind of based around at home she's looking for interest.
Mm-hmm.
She said she was ambitious, so she accepts the process. And that's it's kind of getting, okay, it's got the he in the first verse and the she in the second verse.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to Contract in a way, where you've got these two people. I mean, I guess I interpret to be two people living in the same home,
Mm-hmm.
At home, and they're not on the same page.
Yeah.
It's a downer, but the music is compelling.
Yeah.
It's just, I find this an interesting creation. You go back to Contract, and it almost had this sort of funk punk, with the drums and the bass in particular, but also with the guitar. Here it's a little. This is more of a kind of like a straight new wave song, or I don't know what I don't know how to like characterize it in those kind of terms, but it sounds like the Gang of Four.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. And
now,
and brings the same energy and anger that the Gang of Four has brought us for the previous tracks as well.
Yeah. Now let's play another clip, and this one's pretty short. I think it's less than a minute or so, but the bridge part of this song really gets down to, I think, what they're getting at, and let's listen to it, and then we'll keep going after. All right. Now, you've got the you've got the customer and the merchant, the person who's holding the cards and the person who's, waiting for the scraps, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
But you got, 2 steps forward is the customer, and then the merchant 6 steps back, 6 steps back, 6 steps back.
Yeah.
Small step for him, big jump for me, big jump for me, big jump for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like you go to the airport for spring break, or you go to the airport. Let's take the spring break out of it. And you've got the family that saved up all year for their tickets to Orlando,
Mm-hmm.
the family to take the kids to Disney World. And they're out at the airport restaurant paying $6 for a soda and $18 for a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the well-heeled frequent travelers who go into the Delta Club or the whatever, and they've got comfortable chairs, a place to plug your computer in, free shrimp, food,
Drinks.
Heineken, it's fucking free.
Yeah.
I think that is what they're talking. Now that's that's an illustration of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that whole idea that the people that have money can get away with not having to pay for shit, and the people that are working hard are the ones that get squeezed the tightest.
Yeah.
Financially.
Yeah.
And just that it's the way that it's presented. I think it's why this is one of the more powerful songs on the album, and certainly on the side, because it's just such a simple concept when you look at and this is going on in the political discourse now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The elites and income equality and those with wealth and power get away with everything, and the guy who's just trying to get by gets zapped, for a parking ticket, or whatnot. A very simple way to present a problem that is just as bad or worse as it was when this song was created, 40 some years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great song.
It is a good song. I'd agree. And again, continues to move us through this side with, again, these songs are all different. They're different songs, but they're really the same in the way that they're presenting a theme and an argument for things. They fit well together as a single piece of art, but they're individual songs. And this is certainly a different song than the previous song and the songs before that. You can hear it immediately when the songs get going. But they've put these things together well to continue on with a very focused message.
So in any case, at home he's a tourist.
Yep.
Let's move on. The fifth track is called 545.
Mm-hmm.
And before I've got a track for this that we can get to in just a second here, but I think the 545 refers to the fact that apparently the news, at least either in England or just in the singer's world, came on at 5:45.
Mm-hmm.
So when the news came on, and so 5:45. So the song is about TV news. And let's listen to the first minute or two, and then we'll start talking about it after.
Sounds good.
How can I say
Okay. This song is musically a little calmer, little not quite as aggressive as any of the songs so far. But the message is basically that, here are these people in these first world countries watching the news, having eating their dinner, and what's happening on television, and like 1979, that neck of the woods. I mean, what are we talking about? Things going on in like Angola or
Yeah.
El Salvador? The Vietnam War was over, but it was these other things that were happening, and basically, this lyric doesn't occur in the clip we listened to, but at the end of the song, there's kind of a repeated line. Guerrilla war struggle is a new entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Watch new blood on the 18-inch screen. The corpse is a new personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's talking about the way that the reality of the world is presented and received through television.
Yeah.
Is what they're and they don't speak of it. They don't speak of it highly or positively.
Well, I think that there's they're identifying the danger of news becoming entertainment, right? I mean, one should be shocked when they find out that someone was shot in their hometown, but if that becomes entertainment, I mean, that then fairly quickly people don't care that people are getting shot. So there's a danger there. I mean, and boy, talk about a topic that you fast forward to current times. The notion of, is this entertainment or is this news? I mean, is this news or is this not true? It is incredibly relevant. Clearly, their anger though was that, look, we see this stuff on TV and it becomes entertainment, and then that it's no longer to inform us of potentially some very bad or shocking things that are going on, but we're almost wishing that there was more. Can't you show some like guerrilla warfare scenes or something like that? I don't want to hear about this local town council voting on zoning. I want to see some gore, some entertainment, right? Entertain me. And there's a danger to that, and a lot that gets lost in that. And I think that this song clearly does that. 545, different theme than 515, right? Which was another song by a British band about 6 years earlier. Which focused on a kind of a drug happy ride on a train as opposed to watching the 545 news.
Magically bored on a quiet street corner, free frustration in our minds and our toes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mild storm warning, my generation, uppers and downers, either way blood flows.
Yeah.
Well, and a little more uplifting.
Yes.
515,
yes.
a little more uplifting.
Yes.
And this is okay. So this album comes out in 1979.
Yes.
Well, a few years earlier, the movie Network came out.
Yep.
And in that movie, the whole idea of news on like television news should be just as concerned about ratings and therefore advertising income, money, as any other division in the television network.
Yep.
And they weren't necessarily couching it in terms of entertainment. They just couching it in terms of whatever gets ratings.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that it wasn't so much that we don't care about truth.
but it's the truth we're going to try and exemplify is going to be designed to get ratings.
Yeah.
And they were, like the Howard Beale character in Network. He basically goes crazy and he starts saying things that run afoul of the normal way of doing things on television, but perhaps because they're too true.
Yeah.
A little bit too much reality for that. And then they were going to have like a live. They were going to have this group of domestic terrorists commit crimes that they'd film, and then that would be the basis for an episode on the show. Yeah. I mean, so it was moving into like reality television.
Yeah.
And things, and what's happened now is that to get those ratings, it has to be entertaining.
Yeah.
People talk about, if there's going to be some controversial thing on the news, or there's going to be confrontation between political figures or whatnot, you'll see people comment on on social media, like, oh, get your popcorn.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's common.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're talking about. The, watch New Blood on the 18-inch screen. The corpse is a new personality. Ionic charge gives immortality.
Mm-hmm.
The ionic charge, I haven't looked this up, but I would imagine that may have something to do with the manner in which television is broadcast, and that an ionic charge has something. No, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, if you get killed and it's on TV, you're going to live forever.
Yeah. It's a common theme, the commoditization of the news. And if you're going to commoditize something, it has to sell. And entertainment sells better than news. I mean, this is they believe what they believe, and it shows up in a lot of their the themes that they've brought here, and certainly one that we can identify with today when we start talking about what is news and what is entertainment and how those have really come together.
Yeah, well, and I think that Tucker Carlson, at one point, like after he left MSNBC or CNN, at some point, a while ago, in the past, I mean, more than 10 years, maybe 20 years. But a while ago, after he had done a stint on, I believe it was CNN, he and some other people were going to start this outlet that was going to focus on just straight news and or at least as honest a take as they could on just presenting facts to the public. Well, guess what? It didn't
sell.
It didn't sell.
Yeah.
It didn't go anywhere, and so we all know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And that's and it's the same thing. Whether you're talking about Fox or whether you're talking about MSNBC or whether you're talking about CNN or what have you, they're looking for an audience.
Yeah.
And most people are intelligent enough to comprehend the fact that any one of these different outlets, there's an agenda behind it. And that doesn't mean that it's inherently good or inherently bad, but that is just the way it is. Is this really the way it is?
Yeah.
And so another example of just very prescient social observation on the part of this band.
Yeah.
And these guys are watching. They're watching what's going on in the world now. They're thinking back to these days. They're just shaking their head like, "Told you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't expect us to be surprised about this stuff happening.
Yeah.
All right. For those who haven't had enough doom and gloom, let's move on to the sixth and final track on the side, the final track on the album. And this is a track called Anthrax. And Anthrax, to put it simply, is a song about the nature of love. and the we'll listen to a clip before we get into a full-blown discussion of this, but the song starts out with some relatively harsh guitar feedback, like kind of like off of like Hendrix Axis Bold as Love. I mean, we're talking some very in your face feedback, and we don't need to subject our listeners to that, but let's play a clip, and this clip will sort of encapsulate the substance of the song, and then we can talk afterwards a little bit more about Anthrax.
Let's hear it.
Okay. This is Gang of Four's take on the nature of love, and you can hear in that track there's the primary lyrics, woke up this morning, desperation AM, the thoughts I'm thinking like piss down a drain.
Yeah.
But in the background you can hear someone talking.
Mm-hmm.
And what that person is saying is it's written out on the dust sleeve with the lyrics. And just before getting into the actual content, what I think this is basically two parts of the same person's brain that are articulating at the same time. Mm-hmm. And whether that's, one is emotion and one is reason, or one is, or one is something and the other is something else. It's just, it's two sort of separate parts of the same person's thoughts about this. Mm-hmm. And
I think the way that they put these lyrics together, again, with those two threads going on at the same time, it is hard to keep track of both of them at once as you're listening to it. Very helpful to look at the sleeve or the lyrics while it's happening. But I mean, I think we've talked about the previous songs and pretty consistent anger at this, anger at that, and some pretty well-formed thoughts about what was going on then, and certainly stood the test of time. This, though, is, I think it's a really cool way of putting these vocals together. I mean, really cool. You've got one of those voices is just basically talking. The other one is singing in this. It's a punkish style, but they're putting their stuff out. Yet they intersect and come together on a couple of occasions throughout the vocal piece. I mean, this is cool. It's cool to listen to. And yes, there's been kind of a lot of like doom and gloom and this is bad and whatever, but just stop for a moment and listen to this song, especially if you can get some headphones on or something, and just try to forget it. Just listen to it musically. And it's really cool from a vocal perspective. It's almost like a really good like two guitar solo where they're playing different things, but they play together really well. The way these vocals kind of mix together, I think, is just really well done. And it's very professionally done, and regardless of whether they're going to bring up or down your feelings about love, I mean, I just think it's really well done and just sounds cool. So I mean, I could have done without about a minute of the feedback on the beginning, but aside from that, I mean, this is just a really cool song, and I think a very interesting way to cap off the album. Again, the themes being very, kind of there's some things they're not overly happy about here, but musically, I mean, this I think is incredibly well done.
The and this kind of fits in very neatly with things that have already been addressed in previous songs on this side about the commodification of love, commodification of marriage, yes. The depiction of love in art, in movies, in the media, and it kind of it's just the dissonance between how, let's leave marriage or even sexuality out of it.
Yeah.
But just love. And the way that love is depicted, on television, in films, it creates this daydream that has no place in feet on the ground reality.
Yeah.
For those of us that walk the earth.
It's unreachable.
And yeah, it just it's I almost hate to say this, but I think the lyrics make it unavoidable when he talks about, I feel like a beetle on its back.
Yeah.
Because that's how Gregor Samsa felt when he woke up that morning in the opening of the Metamorphosis.
Yep.
Because this song kind of shows that there is a Kafkaesque aspect to love if your only point of reference is what you've seen on TV or seen at the movie theater or read in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Or heard on a pop song. That's just not the way things are.
Yeah.
And if you go into a relationship, whether it's a sexual or intimate relationship based on love, or a family relationship, or a platonic friendship that's based on love, the reality is just so different than the way it's peddled.
Yeah.
And sort of commodified, and that's not necessarily the sort of thing that you want to put on the turntable when you come home from work, when you want to loosen your tie and crack open a beer and just kick back and relax. But I think that this is a very substantial work of art.
Mm-hmm.
That this song really is. It transcends the limitations of a pop song.
Yeah.
Or a rock song or a punk song. because it's getting at something really, and this sounds pretentious, but it's getting at something that is genuinely deep, in a way that you don't hear songs addressing the subject like this.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't listen to this song all that often.
Yeah.
Because it just, I mean, you could, because
Yeah.
everybody just heard it,
Yeah.
but it really is, it's a very powerful statement. And when you think about it, there's a lot of truth in where they're coming from, because, that most people know that some of the greatest emotional pain that you're going to that you'll ever experience in your life is connected in some way to some form of love.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I'd agree with you where this album, this side, I mean, in this album as a whole, but particularly the songs that we've talked about on this particular side, I mean, I do think that it's important to look at art as communicating, or even having its listeners look at something in potentially a different way. And it is an absolute fact what you just said, that, I mean, some of the greatest pain that we'll experience in our whole life surround people that we love, or people that we care for, or potentially lost love that we, that we didn't have. And that's real. That's a real thing. The commoditization of everything, if it can't turn a buck, it's not important, and whatever. I mean, that's a real outcome from our society. And you don't have to want to be a Marxist or a communist to be able to point out, look, there are some things that we have to keep our eyes open for in our current system, because they can cause problems. It's not a problem that people encounter problems in their relationship. It is a problem if media has taught people that relationships don't have these problems, so that when you start to encounter them, you quit, you drop out, you give up, because what you've been taught is that this is not something that is supposed to occur, and that is a problem for society. So I do think that, yeah, maybe you're not going to put this on to relax at the end of the day. I do think there's a lot of energy in this album. Like when you're in your garage working on your car, or something to that extent, where you're kind of active and you're doing things, I do think it's good music to have on in the background. But it's also important just to listen to what they're saying and to think about it, because it was accurate in the late 70s, and it's damn accurate now, right? With what is happening, and maybe we all need to remind ourselves of some of these things from time to time.
Yeah, and a lot of times when someone is going to sit down and listen to some music, or go out to a place and watch live music, or go to a place where there's records being played to dance, or whatever, a lot of times when people look to music, they're looking for something to get, as a form of escape, as a form of entertainment, as a form of relaxation, or just trying to find and most of it isn't to have the barren landscape of reality scrape across your face.
Yeah.
But music at times has been the perfect mechanism to provide commentary on what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And in that sense, if anyone is ever interested in, because we haven't necessarily presented this music as something that is an entirely pleasant experience to listen to, but if you're looking for an example of how music can be music, and we're talking pop rock type music, and specifically this is sort of a post-punk music.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really get out of that
Yeah.
realm in terms of this particular album. But if you're looking for music that can bring a powerful form of social commentary that really hits the mark and has shown prescience towards what's going to happen in the future,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do any better than this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason. There's a reason why this album is in all the 1,000 recordings before you die. Rolling Stone's 500 best, rock albums. There's a reason. There is a reason why it's there, and I would encourage anybody to take the time to listen to this album because it packs a punch.
Absolutely, and important album, and the test of time has showed that. And great album, a really great side, and Mike, a great conversation.
All right. Well, I agree. And Mark, we will talk to you next time.